everyone, my name is Erica. I'm from the podcast Books and Betches, and I'm here to talk to you guys today about books that I thought the movie was better. I'm here to talk to you today about movies that the books weren't as good as. Movies that were better than the books. How about that? Number one, and this is in no particular order, but I'm just numbering them. If you've ever read Jaws, it's not that compelling of a story necessarily, but Steven Spielberg really brought this movie to life, obviously with one of the biggest box office hits in the world. It's one of the craziest stories of how this movie was made. If you ever watch, there's like a Jaws documentary. It is unreal, all of the things that they went up against in order to get this movie made. It is literally like a movie miracle, to be honest. It's just a cool movie in general. It's timeless. I think Steven Spielberg, no matter how you feel about him, how you feel about how many movies he's produced, this movie to me stands the test of time. And it just is, it's timeless. It's truly timeless. When we talk about like general like mechanics and like what makes a good movie, what makes a good story, what makes a good XYZ, there's such thing as bad books or bad movies, and how we grade them is not necessarily on our opinions, but like the physical mechanics of how the story is told and what is done and the shot compositions and all of these things. Jaws to me is just so flawless in so many ways. Critics agree, so I can't be wrong. Another movie that is better than the books, and I'm gonna say it, and it's a hot take. It's a hot take. I mean, there's no other way it's a hot take. The Hunger Games series. The whole fucking series. And I get it. It's a YA novel. Like, it's not meant for me. But I read it when I was a YA. When I was 20. I did it when I was 20 years old. That genre was for me. The books were good. I really liked them. I loved reading them. I'm not saying that I didn't like them, but Katniss was fucking annoying. I stand by that she is the worst heroine of all time. That's a hot take. Hot Take Express. Get on it with me. We're going to Hot Take Town. Pow, 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 pow. Maybe they have hot cakes in Hot Take Town. Katniss Everdeen is one of the worst female heroines of all time. She's so fucking annoying. And everyone, when I made the video where I was like, Katniss is annoying, like, blah. Somebody was like, well, she was made for a younger audience than you. Like, blah. I was like, bitch, I was 20 when I read this, and I still thought the bitch was annoying. Blah. Blah. Like, she's 17, like, that's how she would have dealt with it. I still thought that hoe was faux show annoying. This is my time period. You're too young to weigh in on this correctly because you didn't read it when I did. Don't test me. This was my period. This was my generation's book for me. It was for me. I was 20. It was the time period. I was the target audience for this book. Katniss was annoying, and Jennifer Lawrence brought a sense to Katniss that made her likable. Jennifer Lawrence is just a likable actress. She has a likable face. She's pretty. She's a great actress. She brought a lot of life to Katniss. She really did. And I think what really helped Katniss in the movies was you didn't hear her internal dialogue, and you only saw like the expressions that Jennifer Lawrence gave for certain scenarios. The worst part about these books was Katniss's inner monologue. That was the worst part of these books. So you take that out of the equation, you have a big box office movie where they put a shit ton of money behind it, and you have a bunch of good actors. You got yourself another Harry Potter situation. I mean, maybe not that big, but maybe a Twilight. I don't know. I don't know how much Hunger Games made. I know they made a lot. It's a great franchise. And it's honestly one of those franchises where like I can't distinctively pick out one of the movies to be like, that movie was the worst one. I have no idea which one's the worst one. I couldn't tell you. And I think they did a phenomenal job of making them all feel significant enough. Kudos to the Hunger Games series. Though I will say Peta Chip is not my favorite. I do not like Peta. I think she should have done Gale. Hot takes over here. Get your hot takes. Get your hot takes. My other one is Game of Thrones. And I did read all the Game of Thrones books. So I can say this with 100% confidence behind my vote here. The Game of Thrones books are very difficult to read. They are very difficult to understand. They are very difficult to process. They are very difficult in general. I think I would have been even more confused if I hadn't watched the show before reading the books and having like faces and names and places to kind of like visualize all this stuff. It's so high fantasy and it's so many characters. Like, you don't even get the full scope of how many characters and how many subplots and how many like sub storylines were in these books. Like, I can't even properly explain how complicated these books are. J.R.R. Martin is a genius. He has to be, because you can't write something like this and not be brilliant, absolutely brilliant. I wrote my own book, right? I wrote Flight Risk, and that was confusing enough. I had 2 real main characters. He has 5 fucking full storylines going at once. And the fact that he must have had like multiple people working on these books to like fact check his own shit, because I like got confused on my own stuff where I would have to be, if I changed one detail, I'd have to go back and like figure out everywhere that I mentioned that one thing to make sure that like it all made sense. Like, it's just so, like, if you change one tiny little subplot point, it changes the whole fucking thing. I understand that he's taking more time on the next book release because his books are just insane. With that being said, like, what the fuck are you doing? What are we doing? The show is done. Let's get this fucking shit on the road. TV show here is better than the books because it's just less complicated. They really simplified it. The show is one of the greatest shows of all time. It will go down as that, despite the confrontational, that's not the word I was trying to use. Despite the, is it confrontational? Controversial. Did you see my fucking face light up with that light bulb? The controversial like 7th season, which they did rush. I'm not saying they didn't, but it will go down as one of the greatest shows of all time, if not the greatest show of all time. And there's a reason for that. Like, the actors were amazing, the set design, I mean, they won all the awards for everything. There's a reason why it won so many awards, and it's because it's literally a work of art. It's spectacular beyond words. And while it all came from the mind of J.R.R. Martin, the fact that he needed 100 pages in his books just to denote all of the houses and do a glossary of the houses and the names and the characters, that's tough. That's tough for your reader to remember that you had to put 100 pages for them. Probably for you too. Probably for him too. The show doesn't happen without the original, which is the books. So a movie that was better than the original book, and I don't know if this is controversial or not, but The Shining. Stanley Kubrick just brought this story to life in general. I personally don't find like the horror genre to be that compelling in text, and I think it's just so much more enigmatic when you see it on screen, and the conventions that he used and he created with his storytelling style, and how he used sound and how he used music within the scene and how he used different shots. It's chilling. It's chilling to the bone because of what he did on screen and what he directed, and his vision is what was so eerie about this story. And to me, it didn't come up that way in the book. It just did not. The Shining, again, probably stands the test of time in general for one of the greatest horrors, psychological thrillers of all time. Stanley Kubrick really broke down the barriers for horror and you know, he changed the game of what was scary and what made things freaky. And he really turned everybody on their heads with The Shining. It's still a creepy ass movie. You know, like The Exorcist, that movie can be pretty funny in certain circumstances when, you know, you're watching it, you're like, it's still unbelievable what they did for the time period, but it just like when you think about it in context, but to me, The Shining is still scary. It's still a terrifying movie, and it's bone-chilling. It's a bone-chilling movie. Another book that just didn't do it for me, but was an amazing movie, was Fight Club. This book is stupid, to put it plainly. It's a dumb book, and the story is stupid. But when you put, why can't I think of his name? Edward Norton. When you put Edward Norton and Brad Pitt in the same scene, and you do it over and over and over again, and Brad Pitt's like really hot and has his shirt off all the time, how can it be bad? I'm just kidding. It's an incredible, incredible movie. It did not do what it did on screen, on paper. It just didn't. It just did not do that. You know, the twists and turns, I just don't think were as suspenseful, and I don't think that they were as powerful in the book. I think they really, really were easier shown in a visual format. Will stand the test of time in terms of like people watching it years and years later and still being like, wow, this is an incredible movie. It's fucking good. Some notable and honorable mentions are Harry Potter. I don't necessarily think that the books aren't as good as the movies, because that's crazy to say. If you read the books, you obviously know that the books have their own like special something about them. You know, there's some subplots that you don't get from, you know, the movies and everything. Me personally, my biggest problem with the series, which book to movie, was the sixth one. I think that they chose the wrong things to add into the movie and didn't add enough of the book into the movie. They added like extra scenes that weren't from the book, and then they didn't add certain scenes that I felt they should have, like some of the memories and stuff. It just, I don't know. I don't know what they were doing there. The movies and the books are just, how can you not mention how good of an adaptation this was? Because you see it all the time of amazing books that people love, like Percy Jackson, or even like The Golden Compass. Like there's huge groups of people that love these books, and then when the movie or the TV show is created, it gets good buzz, and maybe it's critically acclaimed to some degree, but it didn't blow up like Harry Potter did. They're both in categories in their own right, in a book category and in a movie category. It's truly one of the greatest adaptations that we'll ever see. Another notable mention is the Twilight books, and I know Twilight's the worst. I know. We all know. You don't have to tell me, baby girl. You don't have to tell me. This adaptation, very similar to Harry Potter, really brought just a second level of people coming out to ship this fucking fandom. I mean, what Twilight did, these books are actually, you know what? Twilight is different from Harry Potter, because Harry Potter is actually well written. Harry Potter is good on its own. Twilight, I mean, she did something that nobody else did. We have a vampire, we have like a YA vampire romance. Like, I get it, but it's just, the book is trash. Like, the series is not good, and it just blew up. It's unbelievable what happened. But in terms of like the books being better than the movies, I don't know. I I just think it's an honorable mention because of how people like loved these movies. I love these movies. I still watch these movies even though I know that they're trash. I know they suck. I know they suck and I still watch the movies. I don't still read the books. What does that tell you? Just saying. All right, thanks for joining my, I don't even know what the fuck this was, but I don't know. I'm just making YouTube videos now. We're just doing YouTube videos now. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you fucking hate it, tell me and I'll stop. How about that?